at it again. And this time, of course, it's Gavin Newsom, who should never be president, or anything, really, for any reason. Gavin Newsom's podcast invited everyone's favorite fascist, Ben Shapiro, to the program, so we can really get both sides of the story. All right, so we're gonna watch a selection of content from that discussion. I'm not gonna watch the whole 2 hours of their talk, but I'm going to watch a decent chunk of it.
Yeah. And our ICE officers obviously are not terrorists.
Yeah.
A tragic situation.
Okay, so I started here so that you could hear the first words out of Gavin Newsom's mouth are, yeah, ICE officers are not terrorists. I disagree. I think they're pretty definitionally terrorists. It's a political ploy to sow and foment fear and terror in a populace in order to get them to bend to political will. It is in fact a terrorist organization. I mean, they're going to go down as terrorists. Gavin Newsom is apparently just fine with that. He loves that kind of shit.
Is not state-sponsored terrorism.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I mean, when it comes to ICE, I mean, I'll ask you this just generally about policy with regard to ICE, because obviously it's become incredibly
This is Gavin Newsom walking back something his own office called ICE like a week ago or whatever, just to get internet clicks, but of course doesn't have any conviction because he's a fucking liberal scumbag. Which, by that I mean he's self-serving and serving of capital, rather than he is of anybody, any constituent or whatever the fuck.
Contentious given what the federal government is doing in states like California. It seems to me that there have been a number of deportations from red states, right, where there are governors and localities working with ICE. California is a sanctuary state, which makes it much more difficult for local law enforcement to hand over information to ICE about deportation status. What's the purpose of that? Wouldn't best policy, you're pragmatic, you talk about your pragmatism all the time, wouldn't best policy be to cooperate with ICE in the vast majority of cases? So instead of ICE going to, as you say, hospitals and churches to pick people up, they'd be going to jailhouses to pick people up.
Before Gavin answers, no. No, it would not be best policy to bend over submissively toward a tyrant who's trying to violate the sovereignty of your state or the people that live inside of it. No, absolutely not. He can come at the request of the governor or not at all. Except, of course, that Gavin Newsom is a limp dick fucking liberal, and we need people that are not limp dick fucking liberals running for office. So ridiculous.
That's exactly what they do in California, and we have over 10,000 that I've cooperated with since I've been governor of California. We work.
I've had 10,000 deportations that I have personally cooperated with. Listen to this guy. He's so bad.
Very directly with ICE as it relates to CDCR, our state prison. California has cooperated with more ICE transfers probably than any other state in the country. And I vetoed multiple pieces of legislation that have come from my legislature to stop the ability for the state of California to do that. So when it comes to the issues of violent criminals, when it comes to felons, people that are being released from the largest state system in the United States of America, California cooperates with ICE.
Okay.
California cooperates with ICE. Yeah. I just think it's trash. I disagree that you should do that. I think it should not be cooperation whatsoever. Yeah, an absolute weasel.
But why is it then? What makes it a sanctuary state?
Well, the broader sanctuary policies that are established, and we had a policy that was established under Governor Brown, SB 54. You have city sanctuary policies that go back quite literally to the time Ronald Reagan was governor, as it relates to some of the issues in Central America, sort of the origin stories. But the bottom line is, as it relates to those policies, this notion that federal law should be enforced by federal law enforcement agencies, that we should not consign local law enforcement to federal responsibilities and prioritization.
Right, but shouldn't the state step in with localities and tell localities that they ought to cooperate better with ICE? Thus,
no, absolutely not. I don't think that we should be cooperating with illegal, like a violation of rights. Like Ben Shapiro is just a cuck. And all these right-wing guys are just cucks. You cannot tell me that you're for freedom and you're also for violation of the Fourth Amendment as ICE goes door to door, knocking the feds knocking door to door and going in people's homes. Citizens, all of them.
Kong Vang says he didn't go looking for ICE.
Can we help you?
I don't care who you are.
But they came knocking on his front door anyway.
No, you're trespassing. You're trespassing. This is our property. I don't need to do anything.
I'm still upset, frustrated, scared, all types of emotions.
Vang says he was working from home in St. Paul's Frogtown neighborhood early Monday afternoon when his mother told him there was a stranger at the door. Suspecting it might be ICE, Vang grabbed his phone and started recording his interaction with the agents outside.
You don't need to wait. We're not opening the door.
I was really curious and wondering why they were here. I see that they've been targeting a lot of people of color, so that's the only reason I could think of why they were here.
Vang says he lives with his parents who came to the U.S. from Laos in the 70s, as well as his sister and son, and all of them are U.S. citizens. But he was worried what would happen if he opened the door, so he never did.
I was afraid they were going to take me away, take my mom away, and just, rush our house and do whatever they, been trying to do with legal citizens, with people that, haven't done anything wrong.
Vang says the agents didn't tell him why they were there, and after about a minute and a half of back and forth, they left. But he wants others in his community to know what's happening, and more importantly, to know their rights.
They keep on telling you that they think they're doing the right thing, but they're not.
They're stopping people going to and their legal proceedings. ICE has gone to people just after reaching citizenship to deport them through the legal means. This is not a respectable or law-abiding body of the federal government. It is, of course, a criminal organization. It's violating constitutional rights. And when it's all said and done, each and every one of those motherfuckers should be in jail. Every single one of them. Empty the jails of actual citizens. Fill them with the corrupt.
To facilitate.
Well, I have sort of Rudy Giuliani's point of view, who made the point as an advocate for sanctuary policy when he was mayor of New York. He said it keeps people safer, healthier, and more educated. Safer in the context that it allows community members to be more likely to participate as witnesses of crime or victims of crime in going after the perpetrators, more likely to get an immunization shot if they're not worried about the nurse turning them over to ICE, more likely to go to school and get educated if they're not worried about the school crossing guard crossing them and ultimately turning them over to ICE. So it's the tool of pragmatism because of the complete abject failure of the federal government.
What a liberal approach to this. It's like, well, politically, I am opposed to Republicans because of the aesthetic of their fascism. I like a more snaky, sort of underbellied fascism that the liberals have always appreciated. You know what I mean? Like, if there's one thing I have to say about the modern version of ICE, to some extent, the pretense being dropped is both more and less respectful. It's insulting, because they don't even feel like they have to lie to us anymore to get away with their bullshit. But also, it's not this, which is just sort of snake shit. So, sort of in the middle on that one. They're all fucking vile. I guess I'm not in the middle. I'm to the very far left of that one. Really, obviously.
Sanctuary policy is unnecessary if we had comprehensive immigration reform and we had a federal response that was adequate to the task. But in the absence of that, it's grown from the 70s and 80s and 90s, 2000s. And obviously I got here as governor and we had an established framework before I got here.
But it is true that
So he's like, I wouldn't have done it. Trash bag.
sanctuary policy obviously has had a massive impact as a driver of tremendous number of illegal immigrants in the state of California.
I don't know about that. I mean, you see in a lot of states that don't have sanctuary policies, huge increase in immigration, illegal immigration, massive increases, even far greater than the state of California. Just look as an example.
But in terms of the cost structure, I mean, you recently, for example.
Why would you let him keep talking as an example and then you just, like, such a weak, every fucking liberal is like this. You just let him fucking cut you off. It's crazy.
Had to freeze the enrollment of undocumented.
It's like you're here to get Ben's message across.
Immigrants in state health systems to save money, right? I mean, these are major burdens. No,
that's a separate issue. There are 12 states that provide health care for undocs, and we believe in universal health care regardless of pre-existing conditions.
My only point is that the cost structure is extraordinary.
Universal health care is good. Yay. Universal health care for all citizens. Sounds like somebody.
Ordinarily burdensome.
But I don't think it's in unpacking.
Sounds like somebody.
I don't think it's a sanctuary
For all citizens who can pay.
policies that are driving that. And I'll give you a proof point. Florida doesn't have sanctuary policy, huge increase in undocumented community, huge increase in Texas. It's not a driver, their sanctuary policy. They don't have sanctuary policies in those states. The state of California's policies, I don't think in that respect, have invited people into our state. And I use those as, I think, proof points of that. And that's a different. So the notion of how do you deal with people that are here 10, 15 years? How do you deal with mixed status families in the state? And how do you provide for health care as opposed to emergency care and stabilize populations and community health? It's a different approach. It's one that we've been very transparent about. It's one that's hardly unique because in every state, they provide compensated care for undocs at the emergency room.
Undocs. Just listen to how dehumanized these people are. Undocs.
Many states provide it for children, many for seniors. California provides it across the board.
I mean, the biggest problem, though, as somebody who left the state, is that the cost structure in the state has become so burdensome, not just because of illegal immigration, but generally. And so the idea that policy has no impact as a magnet for particular human behavior or alienating people from a state, that's clearly untrue.
Yeah,
and when you look at the homeless population, for example, friendlier policies toward providing services in Santa Monica led
Separate
to...
point, though. But now
Yes.
you're getting a homeless policy, not immigration policy.
No, but
I
if we want to stick
back
with immigration policy,
No,
if you make
let's-
it easier for illegal immigrants
But let's stick with immigration
not to
policy.
avoid ICE, then presumably...
No, look, I appreciate this. So we've established an important. I appreciate the question because I'm glad we've established that we do cooperate.
I just don't like him. There's this tone of granting legitimacy to illegitimate ideas that liberals take when they talk to these fucking people that was a lot of the debate about platforming back in the day. Like, it just seems like Gavin knows that he could get his bread buttered from either side of the aisle right now. He sees a unique opportunity to be like, well, I'm a blue guy in California. I don't know, man. It's just like, I don't know that he can get, because of the coverage, I don't know that he can get Republican support, though, unless he ran as a Republican, which would be interesting. I think if Gavin ran as a Republican and then said, he was like, not really a Republican, though, or I had to leave the Democrats because of this, but I still believe in, he'll put lip service to, like he just did, universal health care, to try to trick liberals into like making a shift, which maybe they ought to, honestly. They're more closely aligned, but
With ICE in California, in particular, this governor, who's, as I said, on multiple occasions, vetoed efforts to stop me from that coordination for dangerous criminals. And we've done that over 10,000 folks.
So it'd be wrong for... So when AOC said this week that ICE should be abolished, you disagree?
Oh, I disagree when I think a candidate for president by the name of Harris said that in the last campaign. I came out, I remember being on Chris Hayes hours later saying, I think that's a mistake. So
when did Harris run on abolishing ICE? I don't know. Let me see. Did Kamala Harris abolish ICE? Kamala Harris is not called to abolish ICE. No, this was Donald Trump's false claim that Kamala Harris said that. So, as you see, collaborator. I don't even like Kamala Harris. I don't even care. She never called for that. Just serving to suck right-wing dick. Uniparty. Jesus fucking Christ.
Absolutely. Number two, as it relates to the issue of sanctuary policy, I think it's important to establish, because it's not well established, sanctuary jurisdictions have lower crime rates than non-sanctuary jurisdictions. So this notion that it somehow increases crime is also, I think, contradicted on the basis of the facts. So this notion that population, it becomes an attractive nature for population increases, I think, is contradicted by the facts. As it relates to crime, it's contradicted by the facts, but there's unquestionably, and you're right about this, as it relates to an expansion of services, but not just for sanctuary jurisdictions, for population, diverse populations. Yes, there are states like California that have chosen a different approach.
And that approach, I mean, means that when you came into office, for example, the budget was, $200 billion? And your proposed budget last year or this year is $350 billion. You went from a surplus.
240. The general fund's $248 billion. We have $42.3 billion additional revenue structure than we anticipated. By the way, another 2.8 came in December, and California is now replenishing its reserves, $23 billion, paying down pension obligations, $11.8 billion. There's no question there are cost pressures as it relates to Medicaid, and Medi-Cal in California, and those pressures are going to be made worse because of the big beautiful bill.
Well, I mean,
He is such a corporate guy. Everything he says drips in this desire for profit.
yeah, I think that the main pressures in the state of California in terms of kind of future costs looks like some of the programs that you mentioned, mainly, if we're going to look at it, CalPERS, CalSTARS, the fact that you have perhaps $500 billion in unfunded liabilities going forward.
Well, in which we've substantially improved in the last 7 years. I just mentioned the $11.8 billion commitment. We've highlighted that in the State of the State to pay down long-term pension obligations. STRS and PERS, their funded liability has been improving over the last 5 or 6 years. Can make up for the last 30 years. You may recall a decade plus ago, we did reforms for new employees moving in. We dealt with spiking and other issues and abuses in that space. We're hardly unique in this country as it relates to unfunded liability,
or fraud issues, obviously,
and fraud.
I love how they talk about capitalism like, look, and obviously contingent upon the system itself is going to be fraud and corruption. There's just nothing to be done for this. We have to make everybody's livelihood a life or death game, and now everyone has to be strung out on trying to make sure that they make a dollar, and their self-worth is going to be tied up into it, and their some sort of hierarchical status. You have to collect coins or else. We're going to move forward to them talking about Donald Trump trying to essentially steal elections.
You can stand that. I couldn't agree with you more.
I couldn't agree with you more. I just randomly clicked, of course.
Concerned about the inputs between now and 2028, including concerned about folks that you know well, Steve Bannon and others, saying there'll be a third Trump term. The fact that I was in the
I think Steve's totally full of shit. And by the way, I think that people should stop giving Steve attention for saying things that are complete horseshit.
And
I'm glad you don't like Steve Bannon, but I think that's because he has pushed you out of that part of the White House. I think that's a personal gripe. I think if Steve Bannon was cool with you, you would be less opposed to him.
I appreciate that, but should I give attention to Donald Trump when I sat there in the Oval Office for 90 minutes and he tells me to turn around and there's a picture on the wall or painting on the wall of FDR, and I look at him and I smile and he goes, I said, oh, here's the third term. He goes, what about 4 terms? Should I take him seriously?
Okay, so
should I take him literally?
I will say,
I don't know. I'm just a question.
I know, and my general answer.
That's the president.
And my general answer to this
All
is,
he's going to do is be smarmy and smile.
if we've watched Donald Trump for 10 years, and we're still doing the thing where we all take him explicitly literally, I think that so
Maduro
people have said, so people
or has.
Okay, it turns out Maduro should have, but you know, one of the
What? Remember when he destroyed the rule of international law and gave like legitimacy to China invading and stealing Taiwan or something, or Russia doing it to anyone? Like, remember that? Yeah, isn't that funny? Wasn't it so funny? You can be on some fuck Maduro shit without doing it illegally. All you had to do is be like, Congress, even if it was secret, Congress, I need approval to do this. Done. I mean, it wouldn't have been that big of a deal if there was some sort of oversight and conversation to the process. And then when you do this, and like in like international conversation too, like, hey, allies and stuff, this is what's happening, here's why. And then they agree, and then everyone agrees, and then you do that thing. And then that's how like formal shiz happen. But that's like such neoliberalism, right? So like the neoliberalism phase of like formalizing wars and doing all that, and the thing that we've been conditioned to accept, which is still ridiculous and barbaric, right? We sit in a room and we're like, okay, so this population is going to die today to bombs. How shall we do this? The bureaucracy in the way was supposed to be the thing that made this have sort of ethics behind it, if you can call it that, to wage war. Certainly more ethical than it is when you just do that stuff. Just craven. Yeah, it absolutely is. Anyway, they smile and laugh.
Things that I remember I would get this critique about President Trump a lot is President Trump, who, as I've said multiple times, on his epitaph, it will read 45th and 47th President of the United States. He said a lot of shit. Like the thing
He said a lot of shit. Oh no, it'll probably say something to the effect of, "And then they got him." Who's going to be they? Lots of choices.
I'm not going to pretend.
I take my presidents a little more seriously than most.
I don't think you do. And this is the thing where I really doubt it. I see a lot of people who will Trump.
Why is he like, oh, it's not that serious? It's just the presidency of the United States. Why is it like reduced to a podcast?
Will fire off a random tweet, and everybody kind of laughs because it's President Trump. If I'm going to pretend that is coming from the same thought process as whatever comes from Joe Biden's press office, which went through 7 layers and maybe not the president,
very different.
Then I'm not gonna pretend that's the same thing because I'm not an idiot, you know.
And that's look. And by the way, I could not agree even more, and that's I think reflected.
I could not agree more with what.
In the humor I'm trying to put back in on my social media.
And actually, I think it's kind of a problem for you because I think that frankly, the stuff that you're doing is more thought out than the stuff that President Trump does. Meaning, I think that President Trump is waking up at 3 a.m. if he went to sleep at all, and he's firing off stuff on Truth Social, right? And so, am I supposed to take that as seriously as you in a methodical fashion, saying, you know what, I'm going to prank him back? And I think that people who are your supporters do take you in that way more literally than they would be apt to take President Trump.
I think, a lot of my supporters have been offended by by what we're trying to do, but no, look, and.
A lot of my supporters have been offended by what we're trying to do. I don't even like his social media thing where he shit posts. So like just nothing's genuine. You know what I mean? He's like, well, we focus grouped this Twitter thing. It's like crazy.
And a lot, I think, appreciate the humor that we bring to it, and I do think I think it's reflected in I think a sense of agreement that we have in that respect as it relates to what Trump puts out all the time. But
like, if you win the 2028 election, I will call you president of the United States, right? Because that election will be legitimate, and if it's JD Vance or Marco Rubio or whoever else,
Marco Rubio. JD Vance is the only one that has a shot, and I do not think that he can stand up to like. Anybody, even Gavin Newsom? I don't know, dude. I might not fucking vote for Gavin Newsom though. That might be too far for me. If he's the guy, and I don't think he's gonna be after a primary, but if for some reason that's what happens, I don't know. It's gonna be really hard. It'll be harder than Hillary and Kamala. Look, I'll do what I have to do, but I really think they're gonna lose again if they do that.
As an American, I called Donald Trump President of the United States, Mr. President. Of course, and so I'm with you on that.
Yes.
On the outcome, but that doesn't suggest that I believe for a second, and you haven't respectfully convinced me that I'm wrong or errant, that he won't do everything in his power to manipulate the outcome. I think it's time of life. If he was 20 years younger, I absolutely believe he'd run for a 3rd term. But his time of life suggests that that's not going to be the case. But I do think he's going to try to hardwire.
This also implicates
calling it time of life instead of he's old as fuck.
The reason I'm concerned about this because it also implicates the guardrails. So as you've talked about in your state, there's a lot of gridlock, right? There are a lot of various moving parts. When you're trying to get something done at the state level, you've got local governments that can impede you. You've got a legislature that can say no to you, right? You've got a bunch of it. You've got a judiciary that will tell you no in certain areas. There was a ruling a couple of weeks ago that I strongly agree with from the judiciary with regard to, for example, school districts and what they can and should tell parents about their kids.
That's going to be thrown out, but we'll get to that Benitez decision. Yeah.
But when it comes to
trans kids, of course,
what President Trump is or is not trying to do. The problem is when we say that he will try to steal the election. Will the election be stolen? That relies now on an opinion about, for example, the Supreme Court of the United States, or an opinion about the various state legislatures and courts. And so now you're not just implicating what President Trump might try to do, you're now implicating pretty much every major institution that is electoral in nature in the country.
Well, yeah. Okay. I'm not uncomfortable doing that.
There's a lot of evidence, and I know both sides have argued A lot of evidence as it relates to the weaponization of justice and the bias that's expressed in a lot of these federal judicial opinions. And it's, it's a little alarming. I mean, as a father of a judge who reveres the courts and, as someone that I was very proud, my father may have been accused of being an activist judge, but he in many occasions calling balls and strikes. And, I revere that sense of justice. That's where justice is found, with an objective analysis. But no, I do worry about the Supreme Court. You may not. I'm concerned about the Supreme Court of the United States. I'm concerned about what Donald Trump did after January 6th, the degree that he went to ultimately try to stay into office. Yes, I'm concerned.
God, this guy really believes, like so many other liberals, that there are right-wingers who will vote for him. He really believes that. He's like, there are people in the center who are undecided, who need to hear this, who like what Ben Shapiro says, but aren't all the way in with Trump or something. Like, what?
Concerned about the actions he's taken, not any one of them from the midterm redistricting, but the sum total of many of them. And yes, I'm concerned if we don't take back the House of Representatives and we have no oversight and we continue to have the supine Congress, we may not have a country that we recognize.
I agree that the Congress is supine. This is why I don't think he's going to be able to win an election. The way he talks is condescending. It's very liberal.
I really believe that.
I
do.
And it's fine to believe all of those things. I will say that to articulate them as though they are all of equal levels of alarm, or that the sum total of them.
And then Ben's trying to match that. He said supine. He's like, I better say some words here.
Is that if we don't win the next election, the country's over, which again is something that you hear very often from the right too. I think that sort of alarmism is quite bad for American politics. And I don't think that anyone who's in electoral politics actually believes that, because I promise you that if a Republican wins in 2028, a Democrat will then run in 2032.
Maybe, but not without them trying to make sure that doesn't happen.
Verse is true. The same thing will happen.
Yeah, I agree with that. Look, I do. I just the level.
And I think the American people should know that, because it gives them a sense, okay, I didn't win this time, but I might win next time. And once the American people start to believe they can never win, or their side is always cut out,
Ben, I
that's
love what
when
you're
things start
saying.
to get,
I love what you're saying. How many times does he love what Ben Shapiro's saying?
The spirit of what you're saying, I completely concur with. I have a different level of anxiety based upon my own direct experience, not just direct experience with Donald Trump. My concern about the rule of law, this notion of co-equal branch government. In your book, you talk about sort of the fundamental Judeo-Christian values of this country with the
Better pimp his book.
That's the Greek democracy. I worry about those principles of our founding fathers.
I worry about checks and balances too.
Yeah.
And by the way, I think that the best way to do that, actually, and this would benefit you as governor of the state, is devolution of more authority back down to the states, devolution of more governmental authority back down to the local levels, and more robust checks and balances at the federal
Your lips
level.
to God in the White House's ears. Yeah, I'm a little.
And I hope you remember that if you become president.
This notion of federalism and 10th Amendment. Yeah, I remember. The red states were arguing for that during those Obama years. God bless you. No,
conversation continues to be a glazed job. I've never seen someone actually let Ben Shapiro walk over them like this. I agree with everything you said, Ben.
Including MP materials, which is.
I don't think the federal government should be taking stakes in private companies. I don't believe in what has been called crony capitalism or state capitalism. Really, it's just corporatism. I'm not a fan of the idea that the government ought to be involved in command and control economics.
Well, then why are you in favor of them literally, like the people in charge of the government, the senators, the representatives, the fucking president, the judges? Why do you allow them to profit from their station from these corporations then? Don't you think that that's a direct thing? Don't you think Citizens United, for instance, is a bad thing that is exacerbated this exact problem, a thing that is supported by the Republicans?
With regard to private companies, so I've opposed that pretty much every step of the way. I think it's a mistake. I think that the market has a magical ability to make things better and cheaper over time if left to its own devices.
Not true, because what if the market colludes with itself? What if the market's like, well, now that we own everything, we can just raise the prices, and then they do? He literally said it's magic. I know, right? It's magically. Don't you think that capitalism will just magically work out in spite of all the evidence that it does not magically work out and eventually will collapse until we take human measures to stop it? Of course, only adding a more complicated layer to it. Never just acknowledging the runaway mathematics of the capitalist system. They think infinite growth is possible, and they create the money. So silly.
And that includes, by the way, not interfering in the independence of the Fed.
Yes.
So
yes.
what
I mean,
he did with
listen, I'm an
Powell's-
Austrian School of Economics guy. I think that there's a good case to be made that the Fed really should not have control over inflation rates in the first place. I think the target inflation rate should be 0, not 2. And I think that we should allow interest rates generally to free float, because I think that, sometimes one of the great problems with the American economy is artificial bubbles that are created by loose monetary policy. I think that's what helped lead to the Great Recession. And I think it's what also led to the inflationary spiral under Joe Biden.
What do you make of Donald Trump and
Doesn't push back on that whatsoever. Lays the fucking economic failures on Democrat. Listen to him. I don't think he's here on behalf of like a left wing. Gavin is here to be a punching bag for right wingers, while he either can't detect that that's what's happening, or more likely is fine with it because he knows that he'll profit eventually from it.
Forgive me, this is, we're zigging and zagging around a little bit, but I still can't get over the fact that he sat down and had dinner with Nick Fuentes.
So I think that was a bad thing to do, obviously. I think that Nick Fuentes is a scumbag. I think that
we pivoted into Nick Fuentes from that conversation. I don't know what the fuck is happening. It sounds like we're just adding Nick Fuentes to the conversation.
The president has, an unfortunate tendency to make nice with people who want to make nice with him. He did come out this week, by the way, and in the New York Times said the Republican Party wants nothing to do with people like Nick Fuentes, doesn't want to do with anti-Semites. I'll continue to be critical of Republicans who flirt with this sort of stuff. I wish that the Democratic Party were as critical of sitting Congress members who not only flirt with this sort of stuff, but overtly traffic in this sort of stuff.
Yeah, he just means people who are anti-Israel.
I mean, I'll ask you about Zohran Mamdani. Zohran Mamdani.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Zohran Mamdani, is he a fucking anti-Semite? Are you fucking serious?
Literally in the campaign. In the campaign, he was asked on Fox News about Hamas, and he refused to denounce it as a terrorist group.
Oh my fucking God. Shut up. Do you denounce Israel as a terrorist group?
They are a terrorist group, and they should have been denounced. I was there, as you know, a few weeks after.
Yes.
October 7th, met with Bibi. Not a big fan of Bibi. This is where we have...
Not a big fan of Bibi. It was your human duty to come out of there the only man alive. It should have been Mortal Kombat, frankly.
fundamental
That's fine,
disagreements. Quite the contrary, in fact.
But staying on domestic politics for a second,
yeah.
It seems to have become a sort of de rigueur requirement for Democrats who are running for office to now suggest, for example, Scott Wiener just did this, he's running for Congress, that Israel committed a genocide in Gaza.
Yes. Do you see how stiff his face gets when he makes this fucking, when he starts this lie campaign on behalf of a genocide? Look at his face. It gets really stiff. He stopped getting like loose.
Now suggest, for example, Scott Wiener just did this, he's running for Congress, that Israel committed a genocide in Gaza.
He can't even fucking, this is his job. This is what he's here for. Oh, absolutely. Ben Shapiro is personally enriched by spreading this messaging.
That is, forget about anti-Semitism and discussions of it, because I think that those have become really loose and people don't have a consistent definition of anti-Semitism. Let's just...
Okay, I actually do. Anti-Semitism is when you make moral judgments based on someone's lineage as identifying as Jewish, whether that means cultural or religious. Making a fucking judgment based on their inherent Jewishness. Saying, yes, you must have this personality because of your Jewishness. No. What people correctly identify is the Zionist, which is a political position that is not different from being a Nazi, except, of course, it's aimed at Palestinians instead of Jews. I mean, it's just disgusting. It's apartheid, it's genocide, and if you mince words on it, you're either ignorant or malicious.
Let's talk about what's true.
That's true.
Let's
I think
talk
it's true about the definition. I mean, we, as you know, have been struggling with that in California
Because
as it relates to a lot of laws and legislation.
Of course, anti-Semitism is a fundamentally different cat than, for example, racism. It's basically a conspiracy theory about Jewish power in the world.
And it makes me sick to my stomach, and I say that clearly. And but not just of course. I mean, we've tried to lead in terms of our response, and we've called out and called balls and strikes in terms of the outrageous things that have happened.
Dude, liberals, I fucking can't stand them. He has to always say, like, we have to make sure our virtue is signaled. I think the best critique Republicans or conservatives have ever had about liberals is that they are just patronizing to talk to. I hear you. I see you.
I would, in my own framework of anti-Semitism, I think that saying overtly false things about the Jewish state is
the Jewish state
a form of anti-Semitism. But
no, you're wrong. To frame claims of their brutality as correctly as genocide is not to say outrageous false things. They are murdering generations of families in a systematic way through bombs and starvation and under apartheid. Like there's a fucking small strip of land. It's unconscionable, and I mean he should be part of the Nuremberg trials, the second ones. He's peddling and trying to launder this message of genocide. It's not different from Goebbels. It isn't. There's just a bunch of them now, and they're international. It's disgusting.
But I don't think that is really important as much as it is.
Mm-hmm.
Is it true or not? So,
is it true that Israel is an ethno-state? Yes. They're trying to enforce an ethno-state. It's not reasonable. It's not reasonable to allow whatsoever.
Democrats have now been dragged into this conversation. Some dragged, some run with flags waving into the conversation.
This notion of genocide.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, look,
Israel did not commit a genocide in Gaza.
He has to repeat it. Yes, they are doing that, actually.
There's no standard by which Israel committed a genocide in Gaza.
Dis-a-fucking-gree. The international courts disagree with you. All international humane societies dis-a-fucking-gree with you. Except for, of course, like Russia and the United States.
On a factual level.
Just as a legal and factual level.
Yes.
Yeah.
What is your opinion of this?
My opinion is I understand the tendency for people to assert that.
Why?
On the basis of the images and the proportionality.
Ugly
as it
shit
relates
doesn't
to
mean genocide?
No.
Ugly shit doesn't mean genocide. Look at how fucking wound up and emotional Ben gets. It's ugly? So, well, it's not genocide. You're killing generations of people, mostly children. It's genocide. If this isn't genocide, then you can't say the Nazis were wrong for the Warsaw Ghetto. How can you? How can you be opposed to the Warsaw Ghetto, which you ought to be? How can you be in favor of the Warsaw Ghetto uprising? I just don't understand.
No, and by the way, I agree with you.
And
I think you're both disgusting.
International and proportionality doesn't mean that if you kill...
I could win fucking president just having this conversation.
Kill my child,
right,
and I then kill 7 criminals, that I've been disproportionate.
7 criminals. Do you see how he has to frame it? What about 1 criminal and 6 family members? I'll grant you 1 criminal. Let's say it's not true, but maybe he jaywalked or something before you bombed him, right? I'll grant you 1, even though it's not fair to them, even though it's not accurate. 6 of his family members too? Don't think so. Don't think it's reasonable. I think it's more likely that an Israeli family has a criminal murderer in their midst than it is that a Palestinian family does.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but I think but I understand that tendency on the basis of...
Gavin Newsom doesn't disagree with that framing, of course, because he's a bitch.
Trying to reconcile the proportionate nature of how the war was ultimately conducted and the devastation.
I have a question. Why
calling it a war?
Why do you feel the need to create a permission structure for that sort of stuff? I mean,
a permission structure for murdering people, particularly civilians? Well, I don't know, man. He should be hauled off with Netanyahu. Hauled right the fuck off to a trial whenever it happens. He's one of them. There's many. He's one of the biggest ones in America, though, for sure. Trying to launder this shit. It's so disgusting.
Meaning, it's not true.
Yeah.
Why not just say, it's not true?
Yeah, look, I don't know the definition, or I don't know the legal threshold. That's not my opinion.
So Gavin is trying very much not to be clipped in saying he doesn't think it's a genocide, but also wants to leave it open in case the criminal courts do. He can say, well, yeah, I've always thought so. Worm, yeah.
I don't share that opinion as it relates to genocide. I do not agree with that notion. But
you do understand that if you accuse Israel of...
Do you see what I'm saying? Like, he's not going to say those words. He's going to say, I do not agree with that notion.
Committing a genocide, that now puts Israel in the position of it should be a pariah state, because states that commit genocide should be pariah states.
Correct. That's true.
Yeah.
So granting legitimacy to that position inherently.
I'm not.
Yes, it would be bad for Israel to agree that they are a criminal state, wouldn't it? Wouldn't that be a bad thing? Oh no. I'm ready to let Israel rot from the inside. Here's what I would do if I was president. You get nothing. You're abandoned. I will not support you. You are on an island alone. I will let the local people sort it out. I'm not going to aid Israel in a goddamn thing, except to extricate Bibi Netanyahu, Ben Gvir, the entirety of the right-wing structure into criminal court, along with their collaborators. That's the only thing I would help facilitate. Figure it the fuck out without us. Let your neighbors sort it. What I would do immediately, though, is I would set up a support structure for the independent state of Palestine around Gaza. I would fucking arm that beach. I would defend those people, and I would make sure that they had not only food, water, shelter, freedom from this place if they wanted, but also the aid to rebuild if they wanted. Fuck these people. Fuck this genocidal state. One state where all people are equal, if a state at all. That's the only option.
Granting legitimacy, I'm just saying the devastation in Gaza at the human level. You've got four kids.
Of course, it's terrible.
No, but I think it's also important to absorb that a little bit more. Just as it was sick, and we were clear in our condemnation, these people like me, as it relates to what Hamas did in that act of barbarism and terrorism.
Yeah, but there's a difference between deliberate terrorism and wartime collateral.
Do you see how he just walks into the it's crystal clear terrorism by Hamas? Same thing for the Warsaw Ghetto. You can say the same fucking thing for slave uprisings. Oh, it's terrorism. They killed babies of slavers in the cribs. They burnt down the fucking big house with all the family members inside. You know what I mean? It's not different. You can even agree that unconscionable things happen during these moments. I don't think, like, Nat Turner murdering literally with a knife a baby in a crib is a good thing. I do, however, understand how a man enslaved as part of generational chattel slavery might, after seeing his own children and children around him, peers, the children of his friends, be murdered, brutalized, raped, killed, and sold for his whole life. I could understand how that guy could take a machete to a white kid in a crib. I could understand it. I don't agree with it. I don't think it's good. That kid didn't do anything. Victims of his circumstance. No different than himself. I'm not surprised his brain is a little maybe violent and non-discerning towards who receives it in that moment. But that's not to say that the slave revolt was delegitimized. It was 100% legitimate, even if they killed every fucking baby on the way out to freedom. Every single one of them. It wouldn't have mattered. It's irrelevant. Same thing for, like, burning Sherman, dude. So it's hard to blame Hamas or any fucking group of people that pick up arms against their oppressive state, irrespective of their, like, purity in that pursuit. Same guy who just sucks the dick of the American soldiers, even though, of course, raped and pillaged across the whole world. Ever heard of the fucking My Lai massacre? This is within his lifetime. Fucking, or maybe a little bit older. I guess he's not 50s. The raped and pillaged, literally, the town of My Lai and many others around there in Vietnam. Killing babies, women and children, of course, non-combatant men as well. No Viet Cong, just fucking guys. Abu Ghraib was in our lifetimes. They did the same shit in Abu Ghraib. I mean, it just keeps happening. We're a barbaric fucking country. So no wonder Ben Shapiro loves fucking Israel, dude.
Damage, of course. And if we refuse to acknowledge that reality, then we end up equating
collateral damage. I have stronger opinions. It wasn't just collateral.
Really? You think that Israel is targeting civilians?
Obviously, you fucking idiot.
I think some of the double tapping issues. I have a lot of issues with how Bibi ultimately conducted the war. I personally do, and I have a lot of issues that are also painted on the basis of the conversation I had with him a few weeks later.
This is disgusting. Like, the political fucking centrism. This fucking worm, like, literally listen to him. I have issues with this. I have problems with this. So that whenever at the end of this, the Israel-Palestine issue is solved by courts or some shit, he can take whichever position they take. This is a worm in a man suit.
After October 7th, the way he talked about the Palestinians. I kept talking about Hamas. He kept talking about the Palestinians. I kept coming back to Hamas. And then ultimately how the war was conducted. Not saying it was a genocide. I'm not. But I have issues.
What is
with
the thing that he said that you particularly?
There was a dehumanization. I didn't like the way he talked about the Palestinian people. I just didn't.
What is the specific? Thing
They
that he
can't
said?
govern them. I didn't. The specific. I don't want to get into the details.
The
of the
reason I'm
conversation
asking
with
is
the Prime
because
Minister.
Because I agree with the racist notion that Palestinians can't govern themselves and they vote for Hamas, stuff like that. Super dumb shit. Of course, Gaza half children because of the way that they treat the adults. Once you age into adulthood, you're criminalized, shot, imprisoned, disenfranchised, etc.
When you suggest that he is conflating Hamas and the Palestinians,
He wasn't
and of course
conflating.
it does lead to the conclusion.
They
that
were
you
different.
seem
It
to be avoiding.
wasn't. No. It was. I'm just saying the way he ultimately conducted it.
Dude, Gavin's body language is even I don't like confrontation with Ben Shapiro.
I look back at that conversation. I reflect on that conversation. It doesn't surprise me, and I did not think it was proportionate.
Okay,
and I thought it was overwhelming, and the devastation and destruction breaks my heart.
Okay, so you're president of the United States. Somebody invades from Mexico. They take several thousand American citizens.
I get it.
Hostage.
By the way,
They hold them all the way until the end of the war. Until the end of the war, their hostages being held.
don't get me wrong on any of this. I'm with you in terms of the ultimate.
Yeah, we should carpet bomb the entirety of Mexico and kill everybody in it. If some guys from Mexico took fucking Greg Abbott and his family hostage, I wouldn't sleep until I got them back. Definitely be bombing Mexico.
Accountability and bringing the hostages home. I like the clarity and conviction as it relates to getting all the hostages dead and alive home, and all of that. I'm not denying that.
And by the way, Hamas still has not been extirpated in the areas where Israel has left them alone.
And clearly this truce and détente is still a work in progress. There's been a lot of destruction.
Well, because
There's been
Hamas
a
was
lot
supposed to be disarmed, and
Yeah.
they didn't.
He's so emotional all the time. They were supposed to be disarmed. Well, they can't fucking be. They're being murdered. Imagine being allowed to be disarmed while you're being murdered, so we can murder you more. Shut the fuck up.
Look, I'm crystal clear about Hamas.
But the point is that
crystal clear about Hamas.
right. But the point is that I think
And I'm
shifting
also
blame
crystal clear in
onto
my love for Israel and my condemnation
Ew.
of Bibi. And there's a distinction. I condemn Donald Trump. I love my country, and I
I'm
think
just going
that
to
should
point
be
out.
easy.
Listen, anyone is free to disagree with Prime Minister Netanyahu anytime that they want. I will point out that,
But they're
having
not
known-
anti-Semitic when they say.
Of course not.
That's also important to say because some people
course.
conflate that.
There-
Dude,
there are
you
certain-
don't. You don't.
No, of
But
course.
other.
Yes, he fucking does. I can't believe it. But Ben Shapiro's tiny penis is inside of Gavin Newsom's big fucking mouth. You just can't see it. There's an optical illusion happening here. It's like a psychic thing.
I've critiqued Bibi myself, mainly for not being right wing enough, in my opinion. On
He's not right wing enough. What does that make Ben Shapiro? Ben Shapiro's like, I would genocide even more. Yemen, you're next.
many issues domestically,
bless you, man.
actually.
God bless.
But when it comes to,
Jesus.
but when it comes to the, I mean, we can get into perceptions of Netanyahu's leadership and all this. I will say this. I know every major politician in Israel, I know many major politicians in Ukraine, in Hungary, in a wide variety of places. In Israel, I happen to know the last several prime ministers. If anyone outside of the state of Israel believes that Naftali Bennett or Yair Lapid, who's on the left,
Would not have been as forceful in their response?
That is nuts.
Yeah.
That's nuts. It's not true.
No, fair point. And look,
I mean, I don't know about these left-wing Israeli candidates, but I can't imagine that there would be all-out destruction. I think what would continue to happen is a state of apartheid in the same way. Other people would have been worse, yeah.
hey,
And the IDF, by the way, operates largely independently in some ways of the prime minister's office. It's kind of a strange dual system that they have over there. I know too many soldiers who, I talk about one in the book, who had 3 limbs blown off going door to door in Gaza, not using overwhelming air power to eviscerate millions of people.
I was in
literally to move
the
people.
hospital meeting victims on October 7th in Israel. So I and been to memorials and
I want to be clear.
He flew to Israel on October 7th, or he was already there? Why was he there? He signed a bill that day cracking down on anti-Semitism. Gavin Newsom did not go to Israel on October 7th. He went on October 20th. He went a couple weeks later.
And the terminology we use about all this stuff, because right now,
disgusting.
for example,
but the genocide
where are the
issue is
protesters?
loaded.
Where are the members of the Democratic Party protesting and wearing pins for the protesters in Iran who are getting mowed down, maybe by the tens of thousands this week.
Well, I know where I am. I put out a pretty clear statement this week, and
I'd like to see more Democrats.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. And by the way, I also thought I thought it was the right thing to do, that strike, and I thought it was unbelievably effective and efficient.
The strike on Iran? It hit a residential area. You can see the bombs blow up people, just traffic in the streets. A couple people get smashed to death by flying concrete that were just shopping on the other side of the street. How is that effective? And these people do not think that brown people are people. I don't even like Islam. I don't like the religion. I don't think that the people that practice it should just be fucking indiscriminately bombed. Call me a fucking extremist, I guess.
And had no problem saying that during the strike. Didn't wait for the outcome. So I marched to a beat of a little bit of a different drum, a little bit more nuance here. But there is everything's so black and white. There's nuance here. I mean,
yeah, the nuance is that they murdered a bunch of people with impunity. Yeah, it's not reasonable. It would be one thing if you're like, we're going to catch every single one of the people that involved themselves in this attack on October 7th. That's one thing. It wouldn't be effective probably, but it's one thing to try that. Carpet bombing just the whole fucking place is not even close to reasonable.
For sure. But I think that the point that I'm making, to get back to sort of where we originally departed here, was that, I'm trying to call out what I see as bad behavior, untrue, immoral behavior on my own side. I'd like to see that more from a Democratic Party that seemed to be perfectly willing to wrap an arm around Zohran Mamdani the minute he got a little bit of momentum.
Yeah.
The same man who had said that whenever the NYPD boot is on the throat of Americans, the IDF is lacing the boot.
He's right. God, why do you, every time they say something about Zoran, it makes him sound even better and cooler. He's 100% right. The IDF literally does train NYPD troops. I call them troops. They do. They share training. And resources.
Sort of nonsense is terrible.
No, I don't associate with those comments at all. I mean, and look, he doesn't speak for me in that respect.
Should Mamdani be the mayor of New York?
That's up for people in New York to make that decision. That's not for me to out here in California, thousands of miles away.
You don't believe President Trump should be president. The American people decided he should.
Well, that directly impacts me. I mean, New York may indirectly, but I mean, it's a little bit of a different question. We'll see how he ultimately does. Thought he ran an incredibly effective campaign. I think there's a lot of interesting attributes that he has. Incredibly bright, incredibly capable. He's delivered some early.
There are a lot of terrible people who say bright and capable.
No,
things.
I get it, but and I absolutely disagree with him on a lot of those comments. And I also maintained that posture pretty consistently over a long period of time. And no, I was not a Cuomo fan.
So who do you like? Were you for the guy with the beret? I already forgot his name, but he was the best one. He's the best Republican ever.
So just for the record,
Curtis Sliwa, that's right.
And sorry,
as it turns out, there weren't a lot of Cuomo fans.
And I say this with respect. I mean, the Cuomo family is a good Democrat. His father, and there's some members of the family I like a lot. But look, these are tougher issues, and they are tough issues. And I appreciate your willingness to call balls and strikes, and a lot of folks.
He says balls and strikes a lot. That pisses me off. We need to break out of that habit. Good God, that's frustrating.
Folks, frankly, a lot of folks in your world, as we sort of castigate the right-wing media ecosystem, your willingness to call this stuff out. And
I think that in general,
does he think he can change Ben Shapiro? Are they trying to date?
This is the way, if we want to have a way forward in American politics, just to get a little general here, it has to be predicated on certain basic premises about truth. And that's why
you're religious, Ben. I am never going to listen to a religious person talk about we need truth. He's going to pivot into trans issues, by the way. Trans people do exist. His God, no evidence of it existing whatsoever.
I keep saying, forget about, categorization. Is it true or is it not true? I think one of the major failings of the Democratic Party in the last election cycle is the unwillingness to say whether it was true or untrue that a boy could become a girl.
A boy could become a girl. So the reason that you're framing that as a child's issue is on purpose, right? You have to say, can a boy become a girl? No, but men can become women, right? Boys and girls are not becoming each other. When you're that age, you're kind of finding out if you're a boy or a girl. You know what I mean? It's so much more than just like, are they switching around? No, you are telling someone with a penis or a vagina what they are, and then later on they're saying, well, that doesn't really feel right. That's the phenomenon you're experiencing. That you were wrong. Not that they're fucking wrong. That you were fucking wrong because you assumed something about them based on biology. And not like biology of the brain, biology of your nuts. Stupid. It's pretty obvious the human experience is more broad than just like, boy or girl. Dumb, slim-minded, unintelligent. I do not want to hear your nasally voice speak on subjects you're so ignorant about.
For example,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people looked at that and they said, excuse me? How is this? Forget about the political ramifications or the policy ramifications for just a second. Can you say a boy is not a girl? And boys cannot just become girls.
And I don't. We can go down. I mean, I feel like a year ago I was with Charlie having this conversation,
Ooh, Charlie reference. Where's he at?
which is remarkable. I'm curious. Did you? And this is not. I'm just honestly curious when I'm asking this. I'm not even. It's not. There's not a loaded question.
Why does he preface everything?
Did you or others in the right condemn the Trump policies as it relates to gender affirming care for including reassignment surgeries in the federal prison system under the Trump administration's first term?
I mean, if I'd been aware of them, I would have condemned them. My company was the only company in America, I believe, that on a media level refused to use preferred pronouns for anyone. We use only biological pronouns since 2015.
Only biological pronouns. So the argument here from a liberal is, well, what about the hypocrisy of Trump then on your position? And it's like, well, what the fuck does that even mean? I don't care. I care about my fucking conviction on the issue, you dumb fuck. Worm.
Launched the company.
No, and I say that because it's just not well known, but the Trump administration's policies allowed for gender assignment, gender affirming care.
Good.
But hormone treatment, being an actual
I think that's
change, the operations.
I mean,
it was
What's with this fucking air quote shit?
federal policies.
Listen,
Well,
I think that's wrong, and I wish that, frankly, you would go further. You've talked about the unfairness in sports, but to me, the bigger question is not unfairness in sports. The bigger question is whether we should be allowing the administration of chemical or surgical mutilation of minors based on
That's not happening.
gender dysphoria.
Well, the Trump administration has strong opinions. They've sued states like California,
I think they're
many
right to
other
do so.
states,
I think
20
they're
plus
correct to do
states.
so, yes.
And my position is that's between the physician, it's between the family member, and these
Why?
patients themselves.
Why? Now, are there any surgical?
Why is it between the patient and the doctor and the patient?
Dude, circumcision? I know, right? No, he's doing a podcast, guys. How dare you?
Or chemical interventions that you would oppose, even if the patient and doctor want.
Here we go. I mean, I know exactly where this debate goes.
Right, but I'm asking. I mean,
and how it goes.
it's a real question
just-
because it does have public policy implications. Meaning, in the state of California, there's a judicial ruling. We referenced it earlier. That said,
Well, that judicial ruling was ridiculous on this basis. Any teacher, and what you're talking about is a law that I signed, as it relates to this idea that
School districts
you can
mandating
fire
the teachers.
that you can fire someone for not telling on a child and saying that they're talking about being gay, not just trans issues, any LGBTQ issues, that you can be fired. There's nothing in the law. The law that I signed does not preclude these teachers from telling the parents.
No, it precludes school districts from going
mandating
after
and firing someone for not. But
Don't you think that-
but it
don't you think the
allows the
teachers
teacher to
don't-
make that judgment on the basis of seeing someone that's being bullied and the requirements they have under the law to keep people safe.
As a parent, don't you believe that a teacher should facilitate
I-
the
I'm-
passage of information to you? Why would that? Why would that?
on every basis. I mean, that they should somehow
Your kid
just
has a
be
headache,
listening.
the teacher's going to call you. I mean, if
if
my
it-
Dude, why is Ben Shapiro so worked up about this? Why is he cutting off? I can't believe it. This is the best subject that Gavin has on this, and it's so rife with bureaucracy.
my
It's
kid
about
decides to come out as
safety.
trans
It's
at
about
school,
safety.
like-
The law is pretty clear, and and the teachers have that ability, and the teachers maintain that ability. We didn't deny that. We didn't say to the teachers, "You cannot."
No,
Quite the contrary. This is critical
No, but
because
you-
there's been a lot of
No,
misinformation about this.
I'm not.
And
I'm
I
not
appreciate you
misinterpreting the law.
recognize that.
I mean, the school, what the
But
law
I'm just
did is
saying
it
you
prohibited
shouldn't
school districts.
fire someone. And in many cases, look, anyone that's members of the LGBTQ community, how many stories that you've heard of people that say, I went to my parents with my teacher. That was a safe place for me in school. There's a lot of grace in this space. There's a lot of testimony in this space that I think should just provide a little bit of grace and humility. It's not a black and white issue. Teachers can still, quote unquote, turn in a child. They just can't be fired.
I mean, but my question on that, and again, this is a subset of a broader issue, is why does the parent not have an absolute moral ability to receive that information? And why is there not a requirement?
Because children are not your property. They are a human being that have their own sovereignty and privacy. And it needs to be respected even if you are a parent. They are whole-ass people apart from you. While you have some legal guardianship responsibilities, they're not your property. You cannot control them. You keep them alive and in well-being. You love them, but you are not in control of them. So you're not going to know everything about them. It is up to the child to tell you and for you to foster a relationship in which your child would want to. Children deserve as much sovereignty as we can give them safely, which is to say pretty much not much. Like, enough sovereignty over their personal selfhood is, not that much, really. That's like the bare minimum. Republicans treat children like pets. It's worse. It's like pets that they self-impose themselves into in weird ways. It's crazy.
There should be a requirement for teachers to turn over that information.
Health and safety is a requirement.
If a teacher truly believes that a parent is a threat to a child, they can report it to child services.
Yeah, so health and safety is still the standard. So you maintain that standard. That standard is the law.
That's a lot of wiggle room for a teacher to apply.
Well,
over
it's
parents.
but it's a lot of law in terms of the weight of that law and that responsibility to take care of it, make sure your kids are safe. But this idea that Trump says people are going to public schools and coming back, having surgeries and coming back the next day is absurd.
No, but there are certainly cases in which kids are being quote unquote socially transitioned at school without parents.
Oh my God.
Parents knowing about it.
Being socially transitioned. No. If kids go to school and among their friends are like, hey, I think I am, feeling this way or that way, it's just because they are confiding in their friends. That's it. Like Ben cannot understand the notion of people having friendships and those superseding parents. Like, don't you? I don't know anyone who's closer to their parents than they are to their friends or loved ones, like their partner or whatever. Like, I don't know who's closer to their parents than their friends, insofar as what you talk to them about. You know what I mean? Is that a thing? Are you like, do you talk about sex with your parents and stuff? Do you talk about like gender? Do you talk about your love life with your parents a lot?
Know some of the parents to whom this has happened. I mean, this is the fundamental question that lies at the root of all of this is the question that you're not wanting to answer, which is whether boys can become girls.
Yeah.
Can boys become girls? Some boys and some girls will find out that being called boy or girl does not describe their experience well enough. Yes, I guess. It's not so easy as boys becoming girls, because I don't think most wokies think that like a boy becomes a girl. I think the girl was always a girl, but they've been taught that they were a boy falsely. You know what I mean? It's not even reasonable. He's saying boys and girls because he wants you to imagine like a 6-year-old getting its dick cut off and getting a fucking neo-pussy, which is just not happening. He's just like all of these people are obsessed with the genitals of kids, and they cannot think of this issue as anything other than like a sex thing, which is so weird. I do not understand why, other than propaganda, like to do propaganda. Like, it just seems like a wedge issue that you can try to misrepresent to try to sway votes.
Yeah, I think
It doesn't seem like a real conviction.
For the grace of God. Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate the sympathy. I also feel terrible for listen, anybody who's suffering with any sort of
I think it's been the case for
terrible,
generations, for time immemorium. God bless. I don't know how.
Why is this a hard one? I just don't understand.
Because I don't know why it's such a. Why is it such a? I'm curious. I understand the political potency of it.
It's not just politically potent.
But it's not
just politically potent. I literally said the same thing.
How it's so few. We're talking
Because
about
then
so few people.
It's not about the
that are struggling with gender identity issues. A lot of remarkable people, a lot of wildly successful people, and they've gone on their life, have incredible lives. I don't know. There's so much hate and bigotry, so much condemnation, so much judgment.
This is the part where I start to object.
Yeah.
Okay, the idea that
This is where I start to object. It's anti-Semitic to suggest me carpet bombing a Palestinian village is genocide, but also I think that trans people should not have human rights. Not. They should not. Definitely not trans kids.
Not be spewing it.
No.
Like some others. Trust me.
But the
this.
Why are you so fucking nice to Ben Shapiro, who has absolutely been spewing transphobic bullshit his entire career? Absolutely has. As bad as any of them.
This is the business they're in.
There are lots of terrible people who say lots of terrible things, but
Yes.
it is not an act of bigotry to say that a boy cannot become a girl, nor should my children be taught in K through 12 public schools that a boy can become a girl.
Yeah.
K through 12. It's not taught that a boy can become a girl. That gender is an expression of oneself, is a human phenomenon worth teaching, especially as kids bloom into their puberty. This is the same thing as like, we can't teach kids that gay people exist. Like, yeah, you can. Believe it or not, it hasn't made me want to be gay that I know that two guys can love each other. It doesn't make me think, if only I could have that. If it does make you think that, you're gay. And it's okay. Be gay.
That is not an act of bigotry. That's an act of rationality and biological simplicity.
It's not biological simplicity. You don't agree with biology, Ben. You are a religious man. He doesn't even believe in evolution, bro. You cannot believe that human beings are evolved animals that have like developed on this earth and also think that they are bound biologically to certain kinds of dress or being addressed with certain names or something. Like that's crazy. What an absurd thing to assert.
I respect your point of view, and
I don't.
But does the state?
Good people disagree on this.
I know, but
And a lot of states, not just California, well-established rules, by the way, that predate me. Again, this is not where I started. We're campaigning and advocating on these issues, as some suggest. And look, I'm with the Governor Spencer Cox, who said about many of these issues, never so much attention been placed on so few people.
The problem is, I do think that on an electoral level, to go to the politics, it is a barrier to entry for a lot of people. When
I
you
agree
say,
with that.
When
I
you
agree
say
with
boy
that.
can become a girl. And then just on a realistic...
And by the way, and I respect if that's your barrier to then listening to people on a myriad of other issues, so be it. It is what it is.
I just find it...
I think it's incredibly small-minded to think that you can't come around on an issue that you're ignorant on. Which is usually what happens with right-wingers anyway. That's like their whole thing. I will not... In fact, it is a virtue not to come around on an issue I am ignorant on. So I refuse.
And it's strange that even if you wish to have a public policy that pursues something different, we cannot just admit that boys and girls are two different things and that a boy cannot become a girl.
Boys and girls are different in that there's different gender expectations in that, right? But when I think of a boy, believe it or not, Benjamin, and maybe I'm different than you, I don't think of his penis. Ben definitely thinks of his penis. Ben thinks of boy penis all the time. I, however, do not think of boy penis. When you say there is a boy in front of me, I look at the boy and I think not of his penis. Why shall I? I haven't done this ever in my life. Apparently, that makes me quite woke to not think of his penis. Ben loves, however, to consider children's peni. That's much more virtuous and normal, of course. Boy, do you have a penis or not? Ben Shapiro's here to check your gender.
Why is this so difficult?
Yeah. I understand your point of view.
I appreciate
and, and I also respect Caitlyn Jenner. I do.
It's not about respect for individuals.
Well, no,
I can tell you a story. Yeah.
I'm good. All right, that's the end. I don't want to hear Ben Shapiro's story about transphobia. We watched all the segments. Gavin Newsom cannot be president. He is a worm. Ben Shapiro is even like, you can't even answer my question. And Gavin Newsom's like, I respect your opinion. And he can't because he is bad. He is bad and not good. I hated that too. That's what the trash is for. A nice, juicy trash of Gavin Newsom. So liberals are bad and have no convictions. Transphobia is not a legitimate political position to have, and if you are transphobic, you're wrong. There's no secular argument you can make in favor of transphobia. The only people that have any, we'll call it cogent argument against trans people are religious, and it's not cogent in that it is based on a falsehood. Your God doesn't exist and certainly doesn't ordain whether or not humans can act a certain way or not. If you think your penis or vagina makes it so that you have to wear certain types of clothes and you have to be addressed by like a certain name as if your biology named you Ben or Tina, like you're just fucking lost. You have lost your humanity and you do not understand what it is to be yourself.
Mormon Jesus.
Dead Domain. And Dead Domain and the Dead Domainers definitely know themselves, though. Welcome to the end of my anti-transphobia rant, chatters. Goats, goats, goats.